I found like some code on GitHub and hired a friend and gave him like $800, and he like connected it to Eventbrite somehow. So I was able to see who gave money to who, and it worked.
We gonna take it, 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 gonna
So welcome, Sam. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, who you are, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I'm Sam Parr. I live in San Francisco, California. I have this company called The Hustle, but we're known for two things. Pre-COVID, we had an event called HustleCon, but that's a little different at the moment. But so we have this thing called The Hustle, and it's a daily email that goes out to millions of people. And we have a team of journalists, and they tell millions of young builders and entrepreneurs and operators all the important business news and analysis that they need to know each morning. We've never raised venture capital, but we built a pretty, I think, amazing company in a short amount of time. And we also have Trends, so trends.co. And what we've done is it's a premium subscription and premium community where we have a research team, and all they do is find interesting insights about the business world and different trends that entrepreneurs and builders and operators can pounce on.
Nice, I love it. I'm going to want to dig into Trends a little bit later, but I like the history of where things began. It was originally HustleCon. Actually, originally, I guess it was selling hot dog wieners the size of a baby's arm, right?
Yeah, so I'm from I'm from Missouri, but I lived in Tennessee. Had a chain of hot dog stands there called Southern Sam's. Wieners as big as a baby's arm, and it was good. It was fun, but it was really hard work. And so I wanted to learn about how the internet works. So I started some e-com stores, and it was kind of interesting. And I just Googled, where do internet companies start and live? And some person on the internet said San Francisco. So I up and left and moved out there and started a business that had a very small exit, but then started HustleCon, which is like a TED Talk for entrepreneurs. And originally it was just like to kill time and maybe like find inspiration and meet people, but it kind of worked. Like it made like 50 or 60 grand in profit in like 6 weeks because I created an email newsletter to promote the event. And I was like, that's cool. I don't know if I want to do this forever, but that's kind of neat. And maybe a year later I did it again, and it made like $250,000. And I was like, all right, something is here. Again, I'm not going to build a conference company. I don't want to do that. That's not fun for me. But what is here? And so, inspired by a biography written about Ted Turner, we decided to start a media company, and that was The Hustle. And our idea behind The Hustle is create this massive audience that's highly engaged of people who want to build great stuff, and monetize by giving them the news they need to know and make money through advertising, and to use all of those profits to launch more businesses to that audience.
Exactly. No, it's funny when you're saying HustleCon at first and you're like, no, that's not for me. The referral program that you built in place for HustleCon, you then realized that you could leverage as well for growing the subscriber base for The Hustle as well. How did you manipulate it for attendees versus people to subscribe into the email list? Because I know it works like extremely well for you for the conference and for The Hustle.
Yeah, so like in our first 3 years, we went from like 100,000 subscribers to like 500,000 subscribers to 1 million subscribers. And we did it through content marketing, but one of those things was our referral program. And so when we launched the event, I didn't know how to do paid marketing, but I thought like, I wonder if I can give someone $100 for, like, if someone got their friend to buy a $500 ticket, I can just give that person $100 for referring them. And so I found like some code on GitHub and hired a friend and gave him like $800, and he like connected it to Eventbrite somehow. So I was able to see who gave money to who, and it worked. It was pretty effective. And then when we were starting The Hustle, it was growing nicely, and we're like, well, let's do it. That was a little nifty referral scheme. Let's do that for this. And so we kind of custom made it and built it out a little bit more.
So, but with HustleCon, I think it worked up to like a speaker's dinner. But with The Hustle, I think I heard that you guys were like, if you did this tier, you get into a Facebook group. If you did this tier, you get into something else. What were like the main drivers that you knew people were kind of capping out on, that they wanted?
Yeah, so we do all types of stuff. Right now, we're giving away a car, a Tesla.
I saw that, the Tesla, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so we're giving away a car to some ambassador. So we always try different stuff. So when we first started, it was just like a sticker. So like I have these stupid tattoos on my feet, and on my left foot it says act, and on my right foot it says now. And someone who worked here turned those stickers or those tattoos into like socks, and if you pull them up your feet, it says like act now. And so people like those because you can't really buy those. I mean, and so people really like that. And people, we used to have really funny and cool stickers, and we still do. And people would just go crazy just for stickers. Even grown men share like crazy just for stickers. It's shocking.
I attended a conference a few years back. Traffic and Conversion. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I spoke there sometime.
Okay, yeah. I remember like our audience are international. They're there just for content. They want to learn. They're not very vocal in the audience seating. I go there for Ryan Dice's opening remarks, and there are people standing on their chairs, jumping up and down for a T-shirt coming out of a cannon. It's crazy. Some people will go nuts for anything free, like even CTA, Unbounce, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, and they're based out here too. And I went to their CTA event, and they just created a bunch of Unbounce swag. And if you visited every booth, you get a sticker, and you get a T-shirt by the end of it. And people are going nuts. The swag booth was sold out like halfway through the day.
Yeah, people like it. We have this shirt that says "Always Be Hustling" that people like. Yeah, it's funny. People like it.
So with the hustle, I want to talk about email deliverability, and I'm not too sure how much you are still involved with it. But like,
I know enough to have a conversation with it, but we have a team of developers, and we have a president of the company who handles a lot, and we have a growth team. So I definitely know. I worked on it. I don't know, up to 250,000 subscribers, maybe a little higher. But yeah, I know a bit.
So with the deliverability, like what were some of the biggest takeaways for the hustle? Like I know you guys get quite interactive with your emails. What was your bounce rate down?
I mean, it's a huge deal. Like Adam, our president, was just showing me this sheet today, and it had like 500 rows or columns of different like metrics that we look at. No, maybe about 100. And we look at a lot of different stuff. I mean, it's like way more analytical and operational than most people realize. And we do it that way because it makes a lot of money. And so with deliverability, like I started the company using MailChimp, and that's great. I would say if you are starting from scratch, use MailChimp. It's fine. But once you start having like, how many emails did we send this year? We sent 500 million emails this year, maybe more. I don't even know, to be honest. And if you're sending 500 million emails, I mean, that's still small compared to that's nothing compared to like an Amazon or something like that. But it's like big enough that you need your own sender IP address. You've got to warm up that IP. Like little small things, like small errors, can actually have like big differences if you're sending 500 million emails. So there's a ton of like small nuances. I mean, it's kind of like SEO, where there's like best practices, but not one thing that just works. Right.
With 500 million emails, what's your open rate looking like?
It's typically never below 50% on a daily basis. I mean, like every once in a while, like during COVID, it was like some days would be 70%.
That's incredible. With the hustle, I know that you guys, you've developed a voice right out the gate. Well, at least from as far back as I can remember, of bold, irreverent, of no BS. You've been consistent with that from as long as I can think back. Is that your voice? How did you come up with that voice? Like for listeners or people who watch this or your show, your presentation at AdWorld, what could you help? Like, what advice could you give them on developing that voice? How did you create yours?
Well, I would say like it wasn't like what should the voice be. It was more so just how, like I was the first writer. I wrote a lot of the first. I mean, I wrote the articles and stuff like that. And when I did HustleCon, there wasn't any employees. It was just me. And it was just my personality. I mean, I always kind of like was just born where I just kind of spoke a certain way and conversed a certain way. But I did study it. Like I studied a lot of salesmanship. I studied human interaction and like what tricks you could use to get people's attention. I studied that like a madman, and I would use that when I was selling hot dogs. Like I just learned how to hook. I would call it a hook. Like how do I get you on the hook? So it was both a combination of talent and studying a skill set. But when I started learning how to use computers and the internet, I was like, I need to learn copywriting, because that is how you take this salesmanship online. And so that's what I did was I studied copywriting like a madman. And so the early voice was a combination of copywriting techniques that I learned and just some like traditional journalism stuff. And so it was just my personality.
Yeah, I can tell. I mean, just even watching some of your interviews and then reading The Hustle, it felt like a lot of it's based off of personality. But you can, after you study and after you practice copywriting, you can tell having that lens on your emails, you can tell it's structured. What have been some of?
But it's certainly not like let me put this persona on. Like there is no persona. It is just me.
Yeah. What have been some of the more like impactful books or studies that you've come across and helped
for writing?
Copywriting? Yeah,
I would say Advertising Secrets of the Written Word by Joe Sugarman's number one. Neville Medora is my good friend now. He was the best man at my wedding, and the reason I became friends with him was because I took his course. It was called Copywriting course. That guy. And after I took his course,
your best man, or you were his best man?
He was mine because I took his course in 2012, and I reached out to him like, "This is awesome," and we became best friends.
Nice.
And so that helped a lot. On Writing by Stephen King helped a ton. And I would say those are the three things that made a huge difference.
Any courses that you've come across?
Neville's copywriting course is what it's called.
Oh, the course.
Neville Medora's copywriting course. No, I haven't seen too many. I mean, I think that no, I haven't seen too many. Well, and rather than books, so what I would do is I did this thing called Copy Hour, where for a couple hours every single day for many, many, many months, I would find the best sales letters of all time, and I would handwrite them all out, like by hand. But then I would do it with books. I did it with Catcher in the Rye. I would do it with Saturday Night, like famous Saturday Night Live skits, and I would learn like the texture of like great writing. You know, it's kind of like how when you learn how to play guitar, you don't like write your own music right away. You start with learning Jingle Bells, and then maybe you'll learn like Green Day, and then maybe you'll learn like Jimi Hendrix, and then you'll learn all classical rock, and then all pop rock. And it's like, oh, I see like what makes a great song. And now I'm going to write my own. That's what I did with copywriting and writing.
Yeah, I think that just applies in general to most things. Is if you don't know something, you kind of have to have a reference point, and using that reference point and then putting your own spin and your own taste and your own flavor into it. Some of the best copywriters in my network, almost all of them do free writing every morning. They'll get up and they will just free write, just practice. And whatever comes out, they'll use it, and they'll just sharpen their blades based off of
look, it's a skill set, you know, it's just like building big muscles. Like you got to like exercise a lot. Yeah,
exactly. One of the speakers that normally comes on at our other conference, Affiliate World, is Heath Wilcock, and he comes from an improv background, and so he leverages his improv experience within his copy and kind of uses that as a flavor piece. So with one thing I wanted to dive into was the cold outreach of Sam Parr. I am a big fan of your article from years ago about how you got speakers on the show. Obviously, from my standpoint, that was a long time ago. 2015? No, when was the first HustleCon? 2015?
I would do it. I would like host it, I think in 2014, and then I would take a year off and then do it again in 2015.
Nice.
So I would like host it, take the money and run and do it again.
I remember you showed some examples of some of those hard to reach speakers. And this again applies to anything, whether you're looking for like a JV or maybe a sponsorship for something else. But obviously mutual connections. If you've got anyone, friends on Facebook or LinkedIn,
I didn't have any connections when I started. Now I do. I just cold emailed like a wild man.
So like using those tool providers that'll give you guys give the addresses, or are we just trying like multiple combinations of John at
both?
Chris,
I would do both. But I just emailed a ton. I just emailed people a lot, and I'm good friends with a lot of the people who I cold emailed. Like the founder of Pandora, I emailed him like literally 50 times over 2 years before he emailed me. And now we get dinner, our wives get dinner, and we're like friends. So I would just email a ton.
So if you're emailing a ton and not getting anything back, you like, how do you mix up that approach?
You follow up or die. So I don't quit. And what did they say in Wolf of Wall Street? Like they say something like they either die or buy, and that's like a shark way of selling. But that's kind of what I was. I was like, die or buy. Like I'm gonna get you to talk to me. Otherwise, like I'm gonna make that happen. And so I had all these tricks, like where I would say like, I just read this article about you. It's inspired me. I just want to thank you. I would say that. I'm like, hey, I emailed you 6 months ago. I said I was working on this. Here's my progress so far. You said this one-liner in this interview. I applied that. Here's the results. Talk later. And then I would just do that over and over and over and over again. Be like, hey, just got married last week. It was lovely. Back at work again. Like I would just do that shit like crazy. So like they just couldn't ignore me.
It was a one-way pen pal that you were having for like over a year's time.
Yeah, and then eventually I would just be like, hey, you launched this one thing that failed in 1998. Do you think it could be restarted again? And they would say like, yeah, but only if you did it this way. And I just said, hey, like 6 months later, like I actually like applied a little bit of that here. It worked. Talk later. Like just shit like that all the time.
Have you? I think you said actually before you tried sending gifts to.
I would send gifts.
Any of that backfire?
Backfire meaning the worst thing that happened was they got the gift and they didn't reply. So that was the worst thing. It's just like shit. They didn't get back to me. But look, like if I email 10 people, I'll get a reply from 6 out of 10 now at this point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, you can also leverage the relationships that you have, whereas if you didn't have any out the gate.
I didn't have any out the gate, but yes, that is true. Now I do, and it's a lot easier. I also use Twitter. I'll like publicly like, hey, this person, I'm trying to get in touch with you. Email me. I love you. Like something like that. Because I have like 20,000 Twitter followers, and so like they'll all like that, and that person will get notified.
Who's on your list at this point in time? Like your network's grown significantly. Like who's on your list to now bring into your own network? Who's that next up?
So it's kind of funny. I would use to network like crazy. Now I don't want to talk to anyone. It's like I've spent like my 20s accumulating all of this knowledge and information, and now in my late 20s and 30s, it's like all I want to do is like execute. And so for me, it's like I actually do way less stuff. I don't go out. Like it's like I spent my 20s being a sponge. I absorbed so much information. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just am trying to execute like a wild man, and I don't want to talk to anyone. That's what I did. I laid down the foundation and I learned like crazy. Now I have the vision and I'm going to go and do it.
So now you've built up this probably amazing team. Like what are the roles that have kind of alleviated a lot of that stress off your plate that have allowed
hiring a president? Hiring a president. That was the best hire. We have a head of content who's great, head of growth. That's great. I mean, at one point or the other, I've done every single job, and getting someone who's a competent content creator was worth it. But an operator, I'm not an operator. I'm not a manager. I'm a leader. So I'm very comfortable with chaos. And when you start something, like until you start making your first handful of $1 million in revenue, like chaos is good. But like once you have product market fit, it's like you just got to do the same shit over and over and over and over again for 5 years. And at the end of the 5th year, it's probably going to be awesome. But guys like me, I'm not built to set up that process. I'll build the car, and then I want someone else to optimize the car to figure out how I can hit this 150 mile an hour car. I can hit 200 miles an hour.
Right. Like, so the president took on more of the operations side of things, you could say? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so with this, then it's alleviated like the stress, and you can focus on new things like trends. Let's talk about trends. Like, where did that come to be? How did that come?
Yeah. Well, the whole idea with trends was, I'm very fascinated with the idea of SoftBank, and what SoftBank did in the late 1980s or maybe early 1980s is they launched a magazine that was like it was like a tech magazine in Japan, and they would see which advertisements were best and which articles were getting most traction, and then they would invest in or start those companies. So that's one of the reasons why they invested in Alibaba. Was Masa's son like could tell that there was a lot of buzz around Alibaba, and he did that, and ended up being like one of the best, I think probably the best investment ever. Like he turned like $20 million into like 50 billion or something crazy. And so I'm obsessed with that model. And so what I've done since for probably 5 or 6 years is whenever I read about cool businesses, I keep a spreadsheet and I dissect them and I write reports on them. So I have this huge category of different companies. And the reason I was doing it was I knew I was going to create this business and do this, where I wanted to build this large audience and launch more stuff to them. And I started showing these lists to my friends and they're like, oh shit, you should sell that. That should be your thing. And so that's where Trends came about, where it's a combination of we crawl the web and find interesting and fast growing things, but then also we do case studies on interesting companies. And then to pile on top of that, we have a community where all people do is discuss these types of things. Builders, they discuss building companies. And that is what Trends is. And it's a subscription business that's going to be quite large. It's almost already bigger than the first business of the hustle. And that's kind of like where the idea came from.
So what's the tech behind it that you're using to crawl?
So we're tinkering with all types of stuff that can look at like the velocity of growth in an Amazon store, or which search terms are growing faster than the others, or which subreddits are growing fastest. So just a lot of different stuff.
Right. And on the back end of this, obviously, you said you've got your subscriber base. On the back end, are you, if any do get picked up, is there any like options for JVing with you? Are you looking for like
a lot of people want to do that, and we've not. But one day, yes, I do want to do that. So we've not raised any venture capital. So which means we basically have to pick and choose we have to move a little bit more linearly than kind of a shotgun approach, which is pros and cons of that. But so I first need to build out this subscription business and make it great. And then we have a few more products that we're going to launch. And investing in companies definitely is interesting to us. Yeah.
What are some of the other products you're looking into, or what kind of industries?
I'm not going to say what those are, but I will say something that interests me is I think that the trust in media is at an all-time low. And I'm very fascinated with creating a trusted source of information. But I don't think you do that by having journalists. I think you do that by having expert insights and people's opinions on the articles. And so there's something interesting that we're working on with that, a subscription product that we're working on with that.
Yeah, didn't Elon Musk mention something about that too? Or building out a credible news source that was backed by reputable journalists of some sort and then upvoted or not downvoted? I completely agree with you. I think we are at an all-time low. I can't remember who it was I was chatting to about, you know that there's like a Facebook Pixel monitor app on your desktop you can get. If you visit a website, you can see if there's pixels on it. So
yeah, I have it.
Yeah, exactly. So there should be some kind of tech. If you visit a website, it could notify you how many maybe ads or back-end affiliate programs or anything on that site that they're just trying to generate clicks from that will kind of devalue the content. There should be something in there that you could always have on your browser that if you visit a news site, you could tell you, is this reputable or not?
I think that's one of many solutions. That's not the solution that I want to bet on, but I think it could work. But like, I think that there's a lot of ways that you can, for one, I think that we're going to see an inflection where people are actually going to pay for news and pay for media far more than they did in the 90s and 2000s. I think that's going to be, that actually is a big shift in belief. In the average consumer. I think that's going to happen. I think that people realize that if something is for free, then they're the product. Like their attention is the product. And I think people are going to understand that, or do understand that now more than ever. And you're going to see a big change.
We're coming full circle from newspapers when people are paying a couple dollars for a newspaper and then they realize I can get it all free online. And now they're understanding why they're getting it for free. And now they're going to start paying a couple dollars a month for their newspaper. Wall Street Journal has done it. Like there's tons that are still doing it, and they're just trying to make it work. It's just that curve of getting people back to understanding why they're paying for things. Yeah,
and I think it's going to change. It's changing. It is changing. I have a subscription product that's booming. I already know. I can tell you it's changing.
Well, I know you're crunch for time as always. I am too. But this has been awesome, Sam. I appreciate the time. It's been great getting to know you a little bit better. Thanks for answering the questions. Yeah, I guess we'll see you at AdWorld next up.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Cheers, Sam.